let's dive in. And if anyone misses anything, there'll be an after action recap. So this is our agenda for today. Our goal here is to talk about how we can get your website to do more from a intake perspective, from attracting clients perspective, from an operations perspective. There's a lot of great things that it can do for you. So first I'll start with just introducing myself. Who am I? Why am I talking about websites today? The problem, so like what's been happening in the last year, 6 months or so that's been changing on the internet, and what that shift is and what kind of changes you should be looking at in the next few months, year, et cetera, with regards to the websites. But then actually talking about some implementation, so some practical workflows, some ideas for how you could be using your website better, and then looking into best practices. So it isn't just simply like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to put all these new fun things on the website. You do actually have to have the internal workflows for that. So I'm sure all of you are aware as being administrators that this is not just simply like we put it there and then that's it, we're done. Part of being successful with implementing something new is being able to have that work and naturally into your current workflow. And then talking about conversions. So even though this is one part of the talk today, I think it's really important to talk about how clients are evaluating you as a law firm, how the website plays into that, and then ultimately how you can have that help you make the website more into a conversion engine rather than just, again, that pretty little brochure that lives on the internet. Which I used to joke, I built those pretty little brochures. So a little bit about me. So my name is Heather Pressler. I'm the CEO of BlueHuki. I am a scientist turned marketer, but actually technically I'm a marketer turned scientist turned marketer, or maybe marketer, scientist, sales marketer. That was kind of my whole path. I started out doing marketing for my dad's engineering firm out in Seattle. He still owns an engineering firm. I still help him from time to time with ideas that he needs for that business. But this is young Heather in college becoming a scientist. So I went to MIT. So I took a little bit of a detour. I was really passionate about science and went very far down that path. So I actually have a PhD in biology. That's what brought me to this area. So I went to NIH. I did my cancer research at NIH, got my degree from Hopkins, graduated at what was the worst time to graduate from science other than potentially today. Yeah, exactly. We ran out of stimulus funding and it was like NIH was on a hiring freeze. Hopkins had been on a hiring freeze for many years. And I was like, the writing's just not great on the wall. And so I went into sales. So some of these pictures here is me winning my first sales award. I was working for a large pharmaceutical company, helping them with sales for their products. I got to the pinnacle, or what I thought was the pinnacle of that career. I was selling Botox and fillers to plastic surgeons and dermatologists, and all of them were asking me for help with their marketing. They're like, I don't understand why this person down the street is all over the internet, but like you're telling me I buy the most product from you. I'm the largest injector. I'm the best injector, but I don't appear that way online. Who can I get to help with this? And out of 400 clients between me and marketing firm that they would recommend, and it was out in California, which there's nothing wrong with being out in California and doing marketing, but there was just no resource for this. And we had tons of horror stories at the time about, I just got ripped off for a web design and they walked away and we never heard from them again. And like, this isn't going well. And oh, that's a 3-year auto renewal contract with, and we were like, whoa, this is, some bad things in this industry. And so when we went and started our first agency, it was to be the opposite of that. So I'll get into that story a little bit more, but these are my whys. So these are my 3 kids. Bobby is the smallest. He's now a toddler though. So I need to update that picture. Marie, and then my teenager who also is, we're working on that, but he, right. Yeah. Very proud of him. He's a student at TJ, which is a very tough school. And he is doing very well, but again, teenage apathy and TJ don't really go very well together. So we're working on that one. It's not quite as type A as his mother. It's fine. Yeah. And then this is my husband, Rob. We met almost a decade ago now, and that's what made me into a military spouse. He will be retiring in December from active duty. Excited for that next phase of our life. But meet Team BlueHuki. Some of those parts of the story will then make sense for this part of the story. So we are military spouse owned and operated. So just about 70% of the people who are in this image are military spouses themselves. We also have professionally trained marketers in that group of military spouses. We have teachers who are in high school English teachers that write content for us. And then we have 3 full-time web developers that work with us. And we are all over the place. So we're global, but everyone works for BlueHuki. So we're not like a contract-based type of group. And there's 21 of us total. I've been operating under the BlueHuki banner for 4 years, but I have been an agency owner now for 10. And we're really a mission-driven, purpose-driven organization. So when I started BlueHuki and moved away from 2 of my business partners, I really wanted more out of who we are, that we're not just your marketing company, that we also as a company have a lot of internal like values, mission, and are driven to really be focused in on getting the best results for our clients. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the problem that's occurred in kind of the last year or so. A lot of law firm websites are underperforming. So there's an invisibility issue that has popped up, and this is not just an issue for startups. It is an issue when you're starting a business and you're invisible, right? In the last 6 months, and this is our own data that we have access to, but this you can kind of Google, it's been reported pretty widely. 83% of websites in the last 6 months saw a decline in website traffic from search. So all of a sudden, there's just less people coming to the website, and there's not necessarily something that a website has done to cause this. What happened, though, was that ChatGPT came on the market. And when ChatGPT came on the market, Google needed to have a pretty strong response, because ChatGPT could easily have stolen, and still has stolen, a lot of market share from Google with respect to people asking questions, getting answers. And so there've had to been a big shift in how Google operates, which then means if Google is shifting how it's operating and how it's prioritizing search and results, that means if you're not responding properly as a website, your website can lose traffic, like the 83% that we saw. So this I thought was a really interesting graphic. It talks about how people are searching using Google versus using ChatGPT. You can kind of go into that, but what's really interesting at the top for Google is they're looking for a quick answer. That we don't really care about. Number 2 is actually companies or local businesses. So when someone is actually looking to hire a law firm, they are most likely going to Google. That doesn't mean they're not also going to ChatGPT as well, but they're still using Google search for business, transactional, commercial searches. Like, I need an answer for this and I need to call somebody. It's not like I'm just looking for information and browsing the internet. So I want to be clear, even though in 2026, 60% of these searches are 0-click, meaning they will never come to your website, that does not mean that search is dead. It means that it's just changing and it's evolving, and you need to stay in front of the consumer where they're going to click through, where they're going to call. So it's just important from a strategy perspective of shifting. So some pitfalls to know about. So independent of what Google and ChatGPT are doing, there are also things that websites have issues with where you will lose leads. And number 1 is not enough information. So if someone is looking for, let's say they're specifically looking for, I am going through a divorce and I have a lot of assets in cryptocurrency. What do I have to do with those assets? Yeah, so when it comes to like having some of those call to actions, yes, I do think that there are some times where people don't want to provide contact information, email, etc. So I personally don't like to do what's called gatekeeping. So like if there's content that I want someone to read, I won't force somebody to insert their email in order to read it. Also because people will just put fake emails or fake contact information, and then you're like, where is this going? Because I can't actually contact them. But I do think you do have to have some of that information anyway from a law firm. You know, as probably most of you know, you have to do conflict checks and things like that. So it's not like you can have someone totally anonymously. But if you do have a chat on the site, like part of the chat's job or goal is to collect that contact information, but the other is to answer questions. And so oftentimes that chat is allowed to answer questions, even though it's trying to collect information. So like maybe someone's asking, hey, do you all work with X, Y, and Z cases? Oh, yes, we do. You know, can you provide your contact information and we'll have someone reach out to you about that. So that can be one way where it's a little bit more of a conversation that you're having with someone before asking for their contact information. Hopefully that makes sense.
Now, like the chat on the law firm websites.
Yes. Yeah, and chat is so I have chat on my website as well too. And again, I don't know that a ton of people use it, right?
Like I don't use it right now.
Right.
We want the personal touch, like we want to call and things like that.
But it does sort of depend. Well, so our chat is actually human manned. So there is a person who has a script, who knows kind of what to answer questions on and all that. It's not a bot.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are human options, and I'm happy to, you and I can connect afterwards too, but anyone here too, I'm happy to send you some of my secrets. That one we use, it's called Apex Chat, and now they're Blazio. And Blazio has both chat that you can install on the website with a human. It doesn't have to be AI. and it does phone answering service too. So depending on what type of law you're in, like for example, personal injury needs 24/7, pickup. Criminal needs 24/7 pickup and chat, right? So those are really urgent. But I would say even too, like in family law, people get really stressed out at like 11 o'clock at night, and they are just looking for someone to validate. And again, we don't want chat to go off the rails. We don't want them to go completely off the script and give legal advice, right? But being able to have that first contact, even the ABA has shown that the first law firm to pick up the phone is the one that oftentimes will get the client. And so, finding these solutions that fit, again, your firm's profile, what you're comfortable with, and fit your brand is really important. But I don't think you should use that as an excuse not to have some of those resources available. And especially the one I just quoted, Blazio, it's not expensive.
I've had situations where people call and they're like, "Oh my God, I got a live person." I mean, you literally say that to them, and that's important, and then they feel more comfortable to kind of reach out to us because of that.
Yeah, and again, a lot of these, just to couch any like myths about them, you don't have to completely redo your website to install a chat, right? Yeah. It's usually third-party installation, and it can work with any website. In general, asterisk, some of these like proprietary platforms might be harder to install it on, but yeah. So like again, a lot of these, though, maybe your biggest thing, and we'll get to this part, is actually getting buy-in from the rest of the firm to do it. So we'll talk about that part too. The shift. So how is marketing changing online? So I told you earlier that the other set of data that we have access to where people are not running strategies, 83% saw a decline. Well, in our client base, 86% of the websites we're working with saw a traffic increase in that same time period. And so that's when I say search is not dead. And certainly if you think about the coin flip there, you're stealing market share then, right? So if you are running the right strategy, you are actually stealing views, visibility, and clicks from other websites that are not running a strategy, right? So that's to say that that doesn't mean that search is dead. It just means you have to have the right strategy for it. So what is it? I am an open book. I'm not cagey or gatekeeping about like what does a good strategy look like on the internet today. And the reason why is probably that bottom metric there is how long and how much effort it takes to actually put into like driving that strategy. So number one, but this is not really in a alpha order. This is sort of all of these are important. Social media is big. If you didn't know, social media, specifically Facebook and Instagram, are now indexable on Google. So that means every post that you're putting out on Instagram and Facebook is now searchable on search with Google, which means we've started implementing keyword strategies for those posts. So if we're looking for family law in Northern Virginia, guess what? We're putting that into the post so that when someone Googles it, a post comes up that's related, right? We've had one law firm in this area see, last year they had 13,000 views on their social media, which is a lot. That's a big presence. And 2024 was 13,000 on Facebook, and then 2025 it was 70,000 on Facebook. And those are people that are not just following them, meaning it's not just their network. And so these search strategies can really amplify, again, your visibility online on social media. Organizations, so this organization being one of them, other organizations that you might be a member of or get awards for, those are all going into the authority that goes behind your brand, right? So it goes that you're legitimate, you have awards, you're a part of other organizations, you play nice on the internet. This one is not an easy strategy to execute though either, right? So maybe you're writing articles for other organizations and linking back to your website. Maybe you're cultivating a strategy to get more awards, right? So that one sounds like a sleeper one, but it's not just like, oh, I join an organization and we're done. Oftentimes there is a little bit more legwork that you have to put into to get that to sing for you in terms of a channel. The website, will be going more deep into the website aspect of this, but this is a key to search on Google and then ChatGPT and other AI agents. Google just came out like last week saying that, you know what, if you want the AI agent to recommend you, it is based off of SEO. And so that was not surprising to us because we saw that pretty clearly that if you were running a good search strategy for the website, it also is translating into a good strategy for AI. I do also think that more than 70% of your leads will come from organic search, which means you can't just say like, oh, I'm just going to abandon that strategy altogether and just go straight after ChatGPT, which is only about 5 to 10% right now. Can't ignore it, but that's a lot of effort to put into just ChatGPT. You want to have a strategy for both, basically. Community groups. This is actually a grassroots strategy on social media where you have clients that are willing to put your name out there on behalf of your firm, but then also firm members. And you know who's really good at this? I don't know if they're here. Geller Law. Oh my gosh, they're like everywhere. If you're in a community group and someone's like, hey, I need a family law, like either like someone from the firm jumps on, someone that knows them jumps on, like they just get recommended. So they have a very tight knit like grassroots. But part of it is just getting cooperation from everyone who's already a member of some of these groups, if that makes sense. Email.
To me, like next door and things like that.
Yeah, so next door, like Nova Moms on Facebook. Like there's a bunch of these
Every
groups.
single day. And they're like, I need a divorce attorney. I was like, is
Yes.
everyone getting divorced?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, if you're on one of these groups, yeah. But also your engagement on posts on social media means you see more of it. So if you are like, oh, I stopped and saw that, then you'll start to see more of that on Facebook too. So whenever you start to engage on something, you will see more of it, which is good because then if you're trying to like tag people and give recommendations and referrals out, like that's an easy way because you can search for the post, engage on one, and then Facebook like that, it's an engagement engine. It's like, oh, I see you want to engage on more of these divorce posts. Let me just show you all of the divorce posts on Facebook.
Makes sense for like the personal injury type firms, but what and personal Facebook. I would think the bigger firms would want to link it to LinkedIn. I mean, they're writing business articles or whatever.
So yes, so LinkedIn certainly cannot be, downplayed. And actually in the first part with social media, I did not mention LinkedIn, but thank you for bringing it up. But yes, LinkedIn's a big part. So law, in terms of law, social media, the two big heavy hitters are Facebook and LinkedIn. Facebook's more of the, again, public facing, consumer level marketing. And then LinkedIn is what you call more like B2B. But in law, for both specialties in law, your B2B is actually other lawyers that are recommending and referring you. So yeah, those are the two that I say are like the big ones to focus in on. And for anyone that's interested in, I've done LinkedIn seminars for firms where we talk the basics of like, how do you network on LinkedIn? How do you post? How do you build your network? How do you engage with other people? So that the whole firm, because again, this is a whole firm activity. It's not just I'm the one person in the firm that's going to do this for everybody. No. We got to have everybody participating. And again, we do it based on someone's comfort level. One of the things I'll talk about here is authenticity. And so if you do something that really isn't authentic to who you are on social media, it really won't work anyway. So we have to find things that work well for who you are. And then email is not dead. I feel like law firms haven't used email as much as I would like them to, because email is ultimately, it's people who have worked with you in the past. It is other lawyers who have referred you in the past. And so staying top of mind, whether it's sending out, and I like the educational approach, educational articles, updates to the law, things of that nature to stay top of mind with either other lawyers or potentially people who could come back and need your help for something. Like if something, even in family law, where maybe it sometimes feels like they leave and then that it's done, we're over. Like what if something changes with the law with respect to their personal situation and they don't know, or they could be going back? That's a potential way to re-engage with them as well too. And if they don't need you, they're like, oh, that's right, Becky was just asking me, I should, and then, refer to you as well too. So again, it just keeps you top of mind with consumers and other lawyers. And then to execute a full marketing strategy, 15 to 30 hours per week or more. I mean, these are a lot of pretty time intensive activities, right? So our goal today is like, how do we use the website to save us time on this? And so that's what we're going to talk about now. It's implementation. So this is just a ChatGPT mock-up of what I asked it to mock up. Okay, what are some of the things that we can do on the, I'm terrible with my left and my right, so I apologize. On my right here is, these are some of the technologies that we can install or add to the website. On the left is, these are some of the trust signals that we want to have on the website. So technologies are like chat, how do we make booking easier, reputation, how can you get more reviews, but filter them, right? Because again, we always have interesting things when you try to do that. And then for trust, okay, do we have recent images of the firm? Do we have videos? Do we have awards? Do we have FAQs that answer questions from ChatGPT? Those are all things that we want to see on your website. So both from a technology standpoint and a trust standpoint. Okay, web functionality for growth. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to the basic, right? We've got form submissions and we've got phone calls. Like they know how to contact us on the website. Where we can go from there, step up, is adding an intake form. So if you have a workflow right now, I absolutely could give you an overview. So where we came to get to here was we talked about how there's been a really fundamental shift on the internet in the last 6 months, and search has really changed up a lot. Websites that are not currently running strategies from a search perspective are losing ground. Even ones that are very well established have been around for a long time. But that is not to be like, oh no, doom and gloom, there's nothing we can do. With our cohort of clients, we have been able to grow their search in that same time, which means we're stealing market share from other people, right? So even though more search is becoming non-click, people are not clicking to websites, it's the opportunity with this change up to like steal more voice on the internet. And then we were talking about how, well, what does that look like? So being active on social media, making those posts geolocated, being active on the website, and having a strategy with regards to that. And then how do we get the website? Now we're in the phase of, well, how do we get the website to do some of this for us? Because there's a lot of activities that we have to do, so to speak. So the next step up is intake form or web chat. So if you have a current way that you're doing like conflict checks or doing an intake form, the website can be built to have the form on the website, and you just send them a link to fill out the form and it submits all that information back to you. You can even maybe automate that process where when someone reaches out, hey, great, we'd love to schedule a consultation. Before that consultation, we need you to fill this out, and it just automatically sends that to the first person. Web chat is one where I think that one's a fairly low decision making. Like, once you kind of vet the technology and you're comfortable with how the technology works and like who's behind the web chat, there are human web chats. Then I feel like that one's fairly easy where people can be like, okay, I don't have to really think hard about whether or not we're going to institute this, right? Let's just do it because it's not altering any of the workflows per se inside of the law firm. The advanced is the one that may require a little bit more effort and work, but is worth it, is a review portal. So you can build a review portal on your website. And again, this is not something super fancy. It just has a question that's like, how was your overall experience? And here's 5 stars. So pick the stars. Stars 1 through 4 go to a form where maybe you have a few survey questions that you ask somebody, like, how was your experience? How was the intake process? Whatever you want that to be about. And then it submits it to the firm. So it tells you if you've gotten a negative review, why you got a negative review. It's not going publicly on Google, allows you to maybe internally address that. So you might reach out to the person, talk to them, or you might already know, right? But regardless, it gives them an outlet to complain that isn't public and isn't Google. The 5th star connects directly to your Google business page, and you can be more or less sophisticated with this. Either it's the firm business page where you put all of your effort into the firm business page, or it could be individual lawyers as well too. And then it allows that person who is going to write 5-star feedback to you to do it directly on Google. Makes it easy that in your workflow, maybe you're doing client offboarding, maybe they just finished the intake process, or they've hit a certain milestone within the firm, sends it out, and you don't have to worry. You could just send it out to everybody, and you don't have to worry whether that was a 1-star review or a 5-star review, because I feel like that's what holds people back for getting more reviews online. And if you see any of the big law firms that have those like thousands of reviews and you're like, how are they doing? This is how they're doing it. They're doing it in a way that protects their reputation, but does it automated so that volume that they're seeing client load is actually being put on Google. That one, as you could probably tell, and I'm sure it's working through your mind, you're like, that's a little harder. That's going to be harder to get firm buy-in on, so on and so forth. That's why I put in the advanced category, not because it's necessarily advanced technology, but it's more advanced with regards to like maybe the discussions you'd have to have internally on that one.
Just ask a question about that. So does AI or someone do like a summary review to make sure that the text being provided matches the star ranking?
In terms of this, no, it's very simple. It's just, tell us first, are you going to rate us 1 through 5 in terms of stars? And then anyone who's a 5-star, we're just assuming that's a positive review. Now they could.
This is what I'm smart people can get in the system. So that's what I was just wondering if there was
Well, a lot of times people don't know that this is a system.
Okay.
So if you couch it as like we're asking a survey about your experience, they don't necessarily know that this is a filter. They don't know 1 through 4 goes to a different place than 5 unless they're clicking on a bunch of different buttons. With the 5-star, and with any star, you risk that like someone still would have some negative feedback in that 5-star. But I will say that don't be afraid of negative feedback. I know we all are, right? But negative feedback, at least online, allows you to respond publicly without giving away, like, again, any private details of a case or things of that nature that shows your professionalism, right? So when a brand can respond to someone's negative review in a professional way, that actually makes you look better than the negative review itself, right? And depending on how the negative review is written, someone goes, "Ooh, that must have been an interesting one," right? Or, and with some firms in like the family law space, you might get opposing counsel's client writing you negative reviews, right? Which like, bring it on, tell me that you didn't like me, right? Like, but that's not obviously a positive thing for the firm, right? But it's one of those things that you kind of just have to deal with one comment at a time. And so even if you got a 5-star that had some negative feedback to it, you can say, "Hey, thank you so much for the feedback. We'll talk to our internal team," or whatever it is that you want to do to just acknowledge it, right? But that's a great question. Any other questions before we go to the next slide? Right. Okay, so some practical steps and workflows. So like I said, I realized like posing these ideas is one thing, and then actually implementing these ideas is a whole other. So ways that I recommend you approach this conversation about websites and like what can we add to them and all that is starting with your competitors. I feel like the easiest thing for me to motivate someone else to do is to be like, "But your competitor here," and I'm sure you all know that personality type where they're like, "Gosh, why is so-and-so like all over the internet and what are they doing?" and so on and so forth. And you're like, so-and-so has a chat on their website. Maybe we should think about having a chat. Maybe not that chat, but like maybe we should have something similar. Oftentimes that is an easy to justify or motivate someone to be like, "Oh, you're right. Like 3 out of 5 of our competitors have some kind of chat option. Maybe we should have that as well too." But then you can also, again, what do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? So you've interacted with the chat and you're like, "This one's not the chat that we want to install, but can we find a different technology that does?" Creative lists of ideas for your firm. That doesn't mean you have to implement all of those ideas, right? But based off of that competitor, based off of what you're seeing out there, you can kind of write down a list of like, these are some of the things that we could improve. Maybe these are some of the things that makes my job easier. Also a good thing to add to the list. And then like, so what are those gaps and where do we have to go from here? And then of course, number 3 is getting buy-in from decision makers to evaluate changes or technology. And so again, kind of putting together that case of like, "Hey, these are the websites that have this on it. These are the websites that are doing this. This particular function is taking me X number of hours. If we put it on the site, this would be done." Or, these are some of the things that we just need to do to like get this going. Once you have buy-in, then obviously you have the green light to like, let's look at the actual technologies. Let's see if there's something out there. Again, it doesn't mean you're going to do it right now. It just means you're starting that process. And then the last one is ask for outside help. So, obviously the ALA has a lot of like resources, including myself, where if you wanted to just talk about, okay, this is what we're thinking about. What are some of the options you've seen? That's also just a great way for, again, you to get a second opinion on like, what are some of the things that you should be doing? And then take actions and set goals, because that's obviously how you get the ball rolling on any of these. But getting help also means it's not on your plate. So then it's someone else's responsibility to get that implemented, that you can work with them, but that helps to getting it going. All right, last one is best practices. So even though we talked about, okay, a lot of the technology we can install, some of the things that we can do to minimize some of these issues that are happening with Google, trust, I think, is a big part of what is making a difference right now online, because there's a lot of distrust with AI being out there. And so I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about trust signals. Oh, why didn't that one show? Or maybe I didn't wait long enough. Hello. Oh, that was weird. Hold on. Why isn't my graph showing? I don't know why that one's not showing. Let's try this again. It's deciding to be missing today. Technology is wonderful. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just do the overview so that you can actually see the graph, but I'll read it to you. So this is what, from a survey of just about 1,300 people, what are the top trust signals that they're looking for when they're making the decision of which law firm to go to. Years of experience the law firm has. So that's sort of a basic, right? Everyone's going to have that in some level. But if you don't have that, just as an FYI, being clear about how many years of experience you have. Pricing rates, fee structure, depending on how you want to address that, it should be addressed somewhere on the website. past case results, or depending on like the types of cases you've worked on. Again, depending on your particular area or arena, you may not want to have very specific details, but that could be, again, some of the content that we're talking about. So if you've had experience with cryptocurrency, if you've had experience with embryo custody cases, those are all things that on the website can be that past case results, but quote unquote, just cases. Like, what have you worked on? What do you have experience with? Legal information about the type of issues the person's having, again, related to that. Client testimonials, office location, pictures of the attorneys and the staff, and please not from 1999. I can do amazing things with AI to try not to change somebody's face, but like the photos can't feel super outdated. They do have to be feel recent, right? Endorsements from a judge or a retired judge, that one's going to be hard. Awards or memberships, pictures of the law firm, the office itself, videos that provide information that also just, again, show the personalities of the attorneys, and then social media activity. Again, this is sort of like a continuum, not necessarily like, oh, well, because social media is the bottom, we can just ignore that. These people are going to go through and check random different places on you. And if you pass the sniff test, you're good to go. If you don't, they go, maybe I'll go to somebody else, right? So you just never want to be that.
Pricing or fee structure information on websites, like I don't think ever.
So it depends on, I agree with you. It depends on the industry though, where some people, they'll be putting that pricing in their Google ads, right? So like maybe it's like for state law, like a flat fee, so when consumers are looking for that, because they are searching it, I absolutely know they're searching it because I've seen it. They try to find ways to tell, right? And I think that there's appropriate ways to address that on the site without having to be like, this is our hourly rate, right? Maybe it's like they want to understand what an uncontested divorce, like in general, how much that costs. Like, so giving ballparks is what I say can be appropriate so that people know, but that also can help you filter out some requests that you might be receiving as well too. So if you are, not doing $500 uncontested divorces, you want to make sure that they know that it's not that cheap, right? So it helps them understand like what is the financial commitment, or maybe even like what is the typical engagement for litigation, right? Or something of that nature. Like I think a lot of consumers don't understand some of that information too. And that's not to say that they will then think that you are much higher priced than everybody else. And I encourage you actually, Google this and look up your competition and see what they've put on their website about that as well too, because then that gives you an idea for appropriate ways to put it on your website as well. Right, let me try to share the PowerPoint again here. And it's still blank. Okay. Okay, so content strategies at work. So this is kind of summarizing some of the things we talked about. So building trust, so joining local organizations, being public about your awards, writing articles for your website, all important. Staying active with local roots, so continuing to build on that core service area of your law firm with local geographies, because again, ultimately, if you want to build a big law practice in certain geographies, that's important to represent on the website as well. And then answering common questions or FAQs. If you haven't seen what some of these AI agents do, they put together these incredible little charts when you ask them to compare law firms. You can ask any of them to do this, and they will put together this. So this ChatGPT put this together for me. And it's looking at like, okay, what's the firm? What are they known for? What is their, and this one was cryptocurrency is what I put in there. What is their crypto asset strength? What's their litigation style? Do they have hidden asset experience? Best if you need, and so on and so forth. So ChatGPT, it does hallucinate. When it can't find this, information, it'll just make it up, right? So the question is when it's asking for these types of comparisons, do you have that information on your website? So like the FAQs are a great way to answer some of these questions if you haven't. And then the other part is just being very detailed about your experience, because then when chat does a content scrape, so it's funny, it's Google and then chat is layered on top of the search, right? So chat is not using Google, chat's using Bing, and it's using Bing to search the internet. So we do set up technologies to make sure that connection is solid, but so it's essentially doing searching for you. So like if you go to chat to ask it a question, it's basically just going to Google for Bing and asking Bing to respond. And if it doesn't get appropriate responses, it then just makes it up. So But that's why you want to have that information readily available, especially for things that are really important to your core business. And this is way too complicated. And I love telling chat, no, can you please make that less complicated? Thanks. So some words of wisdom with going towards some of these like goals and what we talked about today. Set a goal, make sure it's realistic and it fits within your current workflow. Because obviously, like, keys to implementing any sort of change on a website or in a firm is just making sure that that's reasonable. Be authentic. So whatever new initiative we're talking about, whether it's new technology or what you're adding to the site or how you're implementing it, it just needs to be authentic to who you've already been for this time and finding that right solution. Don't feel like you have to pick a technology that is like a less than great partner. There are so many options out there. You don't have to pick the AI chat. That's dumb, right? Like, you don't have to do that. That's not who you are, and that's not who your chat should be. And then execute. So understanding the pain points of your ideal client in this process, and then trying to work towards making that smoother. What we want is a frictionless process, or as least friction as possible, to getting that client in front of a lawyer, right? And so how can we make that just a smooth overall process for them, even at 1 a.m. in the morning, right? Without then waking up a partner at 1 a.m. in the morning. Okay, so that the last part of this is conversions. So once we've implemented new technology, once we've improved some of the trust signals on our website, how do we ultimately get people to convert? So website checklist, which the downloadable will be at the end of this presentation that you can scan, is just looking at just some very key areas of your website that we can improve to also improve that conversion. So clarity, visibility, trust, your offer, and then the action you want someone to take. If we can improve those 5 pillars of your site, we'll improve the number of people that are requesting consultations on the site. And then, like I said, I'll breeze through these, but I have a checklist, literally this checklist. So clarity is like, is my homepage clear? It states who we are and how we help. Our messaging is written for clients, not peers or industry insiders. Although you can have that information, don't worry, you can still have white papers. A first-time visitor can understand my value within 5 seconds of being on my website. My website content reflects real search intent and local geographies. That is usually the number one miss I see on websites. My expertise is clearly defined and not overly broad. My content answers common questions that users may be answering. And just in case anyone wanted to see pictures of Hawaii or Polynesia, I decided to include them here. Trust, my site includes proof, so testimonials, results, case studies, awards. My position demonstrates confidence and authority. My brand is consistent in all the places that we're finding it. Offer, we have one clear call to action. Now, phone call or form, that's okay. But just making sure that there aren't tons, like schedule a consult, fill out this form, it's not confusing. Visitors are guided towards a specific next step. So what is it like to start with you? And then my offers are easy to understand and act on. And then finally, action. So my content is persuasive. It's designed to guide their decisions and not just provide information. My messaging focuses on problems and outcomes. And then my content builds confidence before that first conversion. So they are already confident that I'm a good fit for them before they're even reaching out. You're warming up that lead so that you also avoid that kind of cold lead problem. And then all of this equals conversion. So visibility creates opportunity. So they've seen you in search, right? Clarity converts it. So they see that you're the answer, and then intentional strategy scales it. So then you kind of take more conversions, more visibility equals more clients. And then this is the 2025 client performance that I put together for BlueHuki. The right strategy pays big dividends. I say 5x improvement, but actually in some of the data sets, it was 10x. But I like to be the person that's like, I'm going to show you the lowest positive improvement, right? What it's comparing is the data sets that I talked about. So our client data that we have access to, and then a lot of data that we have access to for people who are not running strategies, what I call the competitors, and looking at both impressions and clicks. And you can see from both standpoints, on average, the non-client was losing impressions, they were losing clicks, and the client base was gaining both of those. So again,
impression is, I never really understood that. Like,
yeah,
does that mean they just seen it, but they didn't click on it?
exactly.
So they can actually tell when someone's just seen the
Yeah.
post.
Yeah, Google is wonderful. Like, it's so in depth. So when you search on Google and you say law firm near me, there, you're presented with a lot of results. Every one that you see on your screen is counted as an impression because you're showing up in search. But then if I don't click, it's not counted as a click, right? And keep in mind, these are just looking at search data. If you want conversions, you can also track conversions. So key events that are on your website, also conversions from any ads campaigns that you run, and your ads campaign should always have conversions as a goal, because ultimately, like, clicks don't necessarily lead to conversions. It can lead to like all sorts of click wasted ad spend, because there are bots that'll click on ads as well too to spend your money. So but yeah, and all of these ads platforms, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're all run by AIs, which means you have to train the AI. So if you train the AI to go after terrible traffic, it'll go after terrible traffic. If you train the AI to go after conversions, people submitting forms, calling, things of that nature, then you get a higher quality target that you're going after on the internet. All right, so 7-day action plan. So my challenge to you is to choose one of these, which is to vet a new technology for your website, to rewrite a homepage headline for clarity, to define one primary call to action, add a testimonial or a proof point, or simplify your messaging to focus on outcomes. So to pick one of those and say, okay, in the next 7 days, I'm going to look at this, not all of them, one of them. And then, kind of move forward with the plan of like, okay, what do we want to do to try to work on this? And then if you want, you can scan here. I will be uploading the talk, as well as the presentation slides are already on there. And then there's also a checklist that you can download as well too. And then I do have my card as well for anyone that wants to contact me afterwards.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, please do.
So I've heard that if you go on to LinkedIn and you reply to someone's post versus repost it, or post versus, I guess, just it actually ends up getting more views or more, whatever. So on a website, like if you ask every single person at your firm to go and start clicking, would that give the firm more?
Oh my gosh, great question.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yep,
More,
yep.
Visibility.
I know exactly what you're saying. There are actually technologies that do this. So I don't know that it's necessarily true for websites, although you're gonna make me look this up. So there are what are called white hat, black hat, and then I call it gray hat. So white hat means I'm doing all of the things that Google has asked me to do to create a high quality website, and that's how we're getting higher ranked on search. Black hat is I'm taking all the things that it says you need to do, and I'm doing it in a way that's actually pretty inauthentic, but it's actually checking the box. And so it's artificially increasing the visibility of my website. But technically, like at any point, Google can be like, oh, I see what you're doing here. I'm going to ban that, right? And then there's gray, which is somewhere in between, right? It's somewhere in between what the white hat strategies and the black hat. There is actually a technology that does this for Google Maps, where they have I don't know if it's a bot or it's people on VPNs, but they're international, and they're people on VPNs that'll VPN into your local area and start doing that. They'll start doing directions, they'll start doing clicks on your business page and things like that. And it does artificially raise the ranking of your page because of the activity it's seeing on your page. But supposedly, we're still kind of testing this out with a client. Supposedly, after a certain period of time, that positive improvement that you see sort of wanes, where Google kind of catches on that, like, oh, I see what you're doing here. This is sort of gray hat. But there have been technologies out there that will do things like that. But that's kind of if you think about it, that's a hard activity to do a lot of inauthentic. But it is a hard activity to also do authentic activities online too. With respect to your LinkedIn question, so different question. So I follow like Tony Robbins on LinkedIn, and anytime I comment on Tony Robbins' posts, all of a sudden my LinkedIn blows up. Like, so many people start seeing me because he has so many followers. And depending on the content of your comment, I do try to make sure that any comments like that are number one, not going to get me haters. Number two, that's a high quality content, so it does put your brand out there in a positive light. But yeah, commenting on especially people who are larger influencers does get you more people seeing you. But even doing that with your current network, right? So maybe it's someone who shared an interesting article and you're commenting to support. You're like, oh, that is really interesting. And then often for my network too, if I find an article is not only interesting, but it actually could be relevant to my sphere, I will reshare their post and then put my commentary, like the market. So I put the marketing hat on. It wasn't a marketing person that maybe originally posted it, but I'll reshare it and put the marketing hat on and put my spin on it. That then shows them support as well too for the content that they've shared as well. But yeah, it's kind of the engagement, impressions, it is this mix of, social media is about being social, right? And so the more social you are on the network, the more visibility and views you get. And I do actually, one second, I do actually have a contracts lawyer that I know that's an influencer on LinkedIn. He gets like 30,000 views of his articles that he writes about different aspects of contract law. 30,000 views. Yeah. So, and again, you don't have to be doing the dance, and like, you don't have to be doing something kitschy to be viral in your space, right? But it does take pretty concerted effort. I think he's been doing it for a very long time. But yeah, go ahead.
Are there any recruiters in the room? Okay, so I have a question. So I
love it. You're like, I'm
just gonna say here. I recently, and this is happening a lot more. So like, I'll put a job, position on my website.
Mhm.
All of a sudden I get phone calls and emails. And I mean, it's not like 10 or 20. I just get a slew of emails, a slew of folks. They're calling the firm. I even put no recruiters or anything like that. It's like, it's obvious they have a bot or something like scanning the website.
Yeah.
And I looked into this. How is there a way to avoid that? Because
Answer the call.
I don't, but then it's obvious that I'm in a, now I get the emails and they're like, did you see my email? Did you see my email? Like,
oh my God. Oh, me too. Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where from the website perspective, those are the types of things that, we probably all get enough emails as it is a day. And that's one aspect of the website where I literally have asked my team to take off my email address, my phone number, direct to me. They want to call the receptionist, have fun with that, but deal with it. But then I tell her, I'm like, just let them know we're not dealing with recruiters at the moment,
Right.
But it gets insane because of the website. How is there, I think that's.
So I'll have to get back to you on that one. There may be a way to pay for that, depending on how much that is though.
Yeah.
But so these platforms are free for a reason because they use your information to resell it to other people. LinkedIn is notorious for this. In fact, I don't know if anyone else has had this issue, but I have, where, I'm very clearly listed as the owner of BlueHuki. The moment someone changes their job status on LinkedIn, they get a text message from me that then asks them to buy gift cards. And so we actually have
Yes.
Yes.
When I get a new employee.
Yes.
It's the thing where that they get a text. I started and I got that.
Yep.
And I was like, wait,
What?
It was Seth. And I was like, he was the managing partner. He's like, hey, can you pick me up some gift card? And I had just started at the firm. And I was like, wait, he's in this, how did he text? Like, how did he do it? And they were responding. I was like, this is not legit. And I figured it out. But so I always warn people in onboarding, like, hey, you're probably going to get some stuff, but I don't know how to.
But it's that same like bot process where they're picking up someone's status. They already know who the owner of BlueHuki is, and then they pretend to be the way we number one train people in their onboarding process to expect that text. Or email. And it changes a little bit. I think the last time it happened, it was a different offer, but regardless.
I get payroll, like, hey, can you do my payroll?
Oh God.
And now I know how to look for it, but it's just, I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of get away from.
So the answer is that, these bots and these people are paying for that access from LinkedIn. And so the hard part is that LinkedIn is giving them that information. The question is, can you pay LinkedIn to like block some of it somehow, right? But the problem, I think, also is that once that information is in a database, they no longer need LinkedIn's API to pull that data.
They already downloaded it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So that's kind of the hard part, is like, it's once your information's out there, all they need is a trigger on LinkedIn to then trigger it from information they already had.
I actually looked into that this week, and I saw that you can actually get by applications. I even checked out RSS feeds just to see if that was a thing. Like, people downloading that, and it actually is an application and they just put the websites in.
Yep.
Whenever you change anything on the website, they get paid.
It triggers it. Yeah. It's crazy. These scammers are crazy. I don't know if any of you have gotten the fake people like applying for jobs. We're a remote agency, and we're pretty sure we got a fake person. And it's scary. It's scary. Yeah.
Even fake candidates sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and this one, we were pretty sure like, AI must have created all of it, because like this person claimed to work for an agency. We couldn't find anything. I'm like, this is a marketing agency that you can't find anything on the agency, right? Like, that's a little. If there's red flags about marketing agencies, folks, that's one of them. But and then she was like, the other one was like, oh yeah, I manage 145 clients, and we're like, 145, like, how would you? Right. So there were just some things there, and then we kind of came to the slow realization that this could be an AI written resume, AI, who knows what's behind it, but like, ooh, anyway, you got to watch out for that stuff. I'm not an HR person, but
I got that recently.
yikes. Yeah.
Like I got a resume and when we searched and nothing matched.
Couldn't find
so
it.
we're like, this is not legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Hi.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Any other questions or thought? Like, and please feel free if there's things that you all have done that you feel like have really transformed your workflows. Oh, great question.
Actually, one of my questions.
So when I started I had a first agency with business partners. No one could ever remember the name of our agency because it was very generic. It was Capital Practice Consulting. But clients that had worked with us for like 10 years would be like, what was it? Like Capital Practice Solutions, right? I literally had a client say this to me the other day, like still 10 years later, can't remember the original name, right? And I'm like, so when I started my own, I number one, wanted it to be trademarkable. And number two, like it needed to be something that like was memorable but short, right? And I went through all kinds of names. If you've ever done the trademark process, whoa. I will tell you, there's every marketing firm under the sun as a word in the English language, misspelled also. They're all marketing agencies online somewhere. And so I switched over to Hawaiian. So I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, then grew up in Seattle and then came over to the East Coast. Huki is a Hawaiian word that means to pull an oar forward in the water. Or in the legend of how the Hawaiian Islands were created, Maui went fishing with his brothers and went real deep and pulled the Hawaiian Islands out of the ocean and into existence. And that action is called a huki. And so I say in marketing, BlueHuki helps you going from being invisible online to being visible.
That's so
that
good.
is
Wow, that
clever.
is a circle.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, it ties back to now you won't forget that I'm from Hawaii and all that as well too. So yeah. Yep. So a hukilau is a fish party. So you're going like after post fishing, you go to the hukilau. But yeah, we also would use that term a lot when I was there. And so I also just had like that childhood connection to the word as well. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. And then the domain was available, which as you probably know is impossible as well too. So yeah. Any other questions or again, thoughts or comments on maybe things that you've done or seen work well? But I know that like
This is like puts Martindale Hubble out of business, right? You heard of them?
yes, I have.
And that's where people used to go to get their top-rated law firm, right?
So it's interesting, like, so what is it? Like the Avos, the Martin Hubbles, the super lawyers. So they're all big directories and I don't know if any of you pay for advertising with them. I know a lot of people do. Why they have you pay for advertising is because they've built these like large search presences to show up in search for these searches. And so when people go, then they're like, okay, now you can pay me to give you access to these people that are trying to access you.
I just literally just got a call this morning from a law firm. One of their partners wants to create another super lawyers searchable database. And she was asking me about like what kind of coverage he would need. And he's not going to be part of the firm. We talked through that, but
Yeah, there we
I
go.
just thought I forget what it's going to call it, like Big Ben.
But yeah,
I
it's,
just thought that's so interesting that he's thinking another word because we already have like you can just use
I'm gonna go
Right.
have
trademark
you
that right
make a
now.
chart. I don't know what.
Right. And when you're referring to Seth, are you referring to Seth Price? Oh, right. Because
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you all know Seth Price, but he also has a law firm and he has a marketing firm because he was doing so well at marketing their personal injury. He was doing so well at marketing the personal injury that he's like, well, why don't I just start? I was like, dude, I don't know if I'd ever want a second business. Like that sounds like too much. But so he has both because he was so good from a marketing perspective of what he was doing. He spun off those strategies into an actual like marketing company. He's like, but no one in this area will work with me because I'm also their competition. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of people who build businesses based off of search because it works. Although like if you ask my opinion on some of these strategies and some things like that, I just give you the straight answer, which is like, if ChatGPT is only resulting right now in about 5 to 10% of your leads or your strategies, like that's going to have to be a pretty cheap strategy for you to justify the cost of it. Right. And so I'm very much so like, a numbers person. And I was like, the cost of what you're doing to get those leads, it has to make sense from a acquisition perspective. And so, then how can we find a strategy that still addresses that issue that you're looking to address, but it isn't super costly? So like, some of them out there, Yelp probably being one of them, but Yelp charges a ton for its leads. It's not super, super expensive, but then if you look at the quality, it's like, if I didn't even get one lead and I'm paying Yelp like $900 a month, like that's a lot, right? That's a lot per lead. I could get it less in other areas. That doesn't mean you wouldn't necessarily try it out, but then you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Economies of scale, right? So at least the strategies that we focus on at BlueHuki like are very much so like these are the ones where when you scale it, you get big volume coming in that then justifies the cost that you're having to outlay to get that there. And then SEO is one of those strategies. The great thing about SEO is I build that content for your site, and then from that point forward, the traffic it brings in is free, right? You're not paying me to constantly run ads, right? But ads are a strategy, and ads you can get a return on investment from. But that's what's nice about building big websites is that traffic ultimately becomes free. So
I'm trying to think about how to pose my questions. So I'm sorry if this doesn't make sense, but given just the capacity for AI and search engines to just, mine through mindless data
yes.
and spit something out, is there any, I guess, like pushback or is there a feel in the market that because it is just so unwieldy that people are reverting to like the old fashioned, like, okay, it's just too, right? Like it's too much. How do I know if I can trust any of it? So I'm just going to go back to like what you were saying, like my neighborhood, group and say, all right, I need an estate planner,
Right.
or I need a dentist. I just need to like
So
really narrow this back into the old fashioned. Somebody actually told me that they like this person, and at least I know that can trust that person. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm wondering like how that.
So that kind of goes
Yeah.
back into, and I love you're bringing it up. It kind of goes back into this one graph that I shared earlier. It wasn't that one. It was the one that wasn't showing up. But the concept of that, even though this is sort of a waterfall where you're like, oh, okay, so all I have to do is provide more information and we're done, right? Because that's what 76% of people are looking for that they're not getting. That's where the waterfall effect does matter when you're looking at your strategies, meaning even if social media or the groups are at the bottom here and like there's 20 or 30%, if you're missing that channel, you are missing opportunities to, again, bring in more leads, which is why you need that comprehensive strategy. But then that's also when you're looking at the time it takes to run these strategies where you're like, oh my gosh, like where are we going to find the time to be in this group and commenting and doing this and posting on the site and running these ads and like, so you do need a comprehensive strategy is the answer to your question. You can't ignore some channels because as things shift, you have to be, number one, monitoring where your leads are coming from. If you don't even know, that's a problem, right? Because then if something shifts, you don't know that something needs to change to shift with it. But then number two is that when you have all of these, because AI can just, again, search the whole web, make a value judgment that you're not present enough in enough places that it's not going to recommend you. And then that's it, you're out, right? You've missed the check marks on 3 out of the 10 and they're like, well, there's someone that has 10 out of the 10, so I'm going to recommend them instead. So unfortunately it sort of means you have to have that omni-channel strategy, but again, you make it work with kind of the resources you have internally, the personalities that you have in the firm. So you have a couple of people who are your LinkedIn champions. Perfect. You love LinkedIn, you're our LinkedIn champions. Done. Like you love Facebook, you're our Facebook champions, right? But maybe having that a little bit more formalized in the firm where like people understand like, hey, I am very active on Facebook and my firm is tapping me to be that active presence on Facebook or to be that active presence on LinkedIn. And then I've known businesses that hire for that now where it's like, oh, great, you're a front desk. Well, guess what? Do you also like doing social media videos? Well, our front desk is great at answering the phone and they're going to be doing videos, although that's not always reasonable. But I do know firms and businesses that will hire for someone that can do some of the things that they're uncomfortable with doing.
My daughter was hired locally for a farm, sustainability farm here
Oh,
in
cool.
this area last summer in college. And she was doing videos for them just like on the side.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, most of you they say, can we do a PowerPoint on how to make a video? And then they're like, how do you do a PowerPoint? She was like, it was so funny, just that some of it's just so aged. I don't, that's why I'm asking, what's the impression like? I don't know any of this stuff. But the kids, You just hire a teenager, they can do this in 20 seconds. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Some of them can. I will definitely say that my son is not the person you want to hire for that. Not yet, at least. But it is interesting though, because like a lot of young people, yes, do, but sometimes they don't have the professional skills yet to be able to manage some of that, or even make like decisions about what's appropriate, not appropriate content as well.
We have a review process. It doesn't get posted without like a blog or an article or white paper, like nothing legal, anything that's posted without an attorney's authorization. Like a trusted attorney's authorization.
So, you know, we can see the malpractice cases where people
Stop
put
it.
testimonials on the website. And it will be like that, you know, maybe not an exact quote, but it'll say, we had this case, John Doe, we won for $10 million, you know, whatever. And then the person will come back and sue, like, everybody knows that I am John Doe. I'm suing you for malpractice, for reputation, defamation. Put it down on your site. So there's something that.
Yeah. And, you know, similar goes for like medical websites as well, too. If they post someone's before and afters without their consent, it is always good when you do use either like, you know, a very detailed case studies or testimonials or things like that, that you have consent, even when you're, you know, like black barring something about their face, if you're doing facial photos, right? Or again, you're removing some of the details, but there's too many identifying details, right? Yeah, those are always good to make sure. Or maybe it's being widely reported in the news. That's another one that can help.
I mean, sometimes it's nice in the news, sometimes it's interesting for the news.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, I don't know how to market this.
Yeah, I once had this one was sort of a famous one, infamous one, where a dermatologist got interviewed on the news or something, and they were asking him about parasitic infections. He's like, I will never, ever do that again. The next day, first thing in the morning, someone shows up to my office that there's a psychological condition called delusions of parasitosis, where someone thinks they have. So he just got a whole bunch of those cases showing up. And it's really difficult as a provider to have to explain like, hey, you know, and especially when you're a physical provider, having to explain, I need you to go to a mental health, like that conversation does not go well. But yeah, he was like, but that's also an SEO thing. If you don't want to attract a certain client type, do not put that content on your website, because that will just attract that client type and persona. And again, there's all kinds, but if you don't want to do litigation and then you're talking about high conflict divorce or whatever it is, that'll attract more litigation. Or narcissistic personality types is my favorite content. Gets a lot of hits on the internet. If you don't like working with that, then
Thank
yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me today.
So there's a couple of things. One, our next meeting is in June. I don't think we have a date yet, do we? Yeah, we're working on that. So stay tuned, information coming soon. It will be virtual.
About the one I'm doing with
Yeah,
my
webinar.
attorney? Oh, yeah, June 17th.
June 17th. Okay. June 17th.
Double check, but we'll send out the info.
Yeah, we'll send out info.